College can be difficult enough as is, so you definitely don't want to make it even harder for yourself. And yet, many students do just that because they fail to thoroughly read through instructions on assignments or fully consider the things the professor is looking for when grading your assignments. Some professors will provide students with a rubric in advance along with an assignment's instructions. A rubric is a scoring guide or a set of criteria used by professors to evaluate and grade student assignments consistently and fairly. A rubric is helpful to students because it can tell you which parts of an assignment will have a smaller or larger impact on your grade, which should clue you into where to prioritize your efforts. It can act as a checklist. Go through your rubric before turning in an assignment so that you can make sure you don't skip anything that your professor will be looking for. Finally, a rubric helps the professor structure their feedback to you, which should help you understand why you earned the grade that you did. And in doing so, it provides you with a way to engage with your professor if you're seeking clarification about your grade or if you think that you addressed something that they missed. Professors don't appreciate it when students try to challenge a grade without first giving serious consideration to the feedback they've left on the rubric or the comments they otherwise leave on your paper or exam. However, most professors will be receptive to meeting with students to talk about their grades if the student shows that they've read through their comments and can point to specific places where they think they should have earned more credit than they were given. So, if you're going to try to challenge a grade, you'll need to come to your professor prepared to make your case, and a rubric can help with that. But even if your professor doesn't use a rubric, or if they only provide it after the fact, you can still use the instructions for an assignment to infer what you need to include in your response in order to earn full credit. Look carefully at the instructions and try to separate out stylistic requirements such as page length, word count, sections, etc., and the content-oriented requirements such as specific questions and sub-questions you're supposed to answer, the specific sources you're supposed to consult, the number of examples you're supposed to include, etc. You should assume that if it's stated in the instructions that it will also appear in a formal rubric, and if your professor doesn't use a rubric at all, you should assume that those things will be considered expectations when they read through your assignment and give you a grade. Reading instructions can also help you avoid mistakes in your work, but you have to read them carefully so that you're not misinterpreting or overlooking anything. One thing that you might find helpful is to make notes about what the instructions ask you to do or to make your own rubric or checklist so you don't forget exactly what is expected of you. Finally, you should read the instructions and the rubric as soon as you receive an assignment. Doing so can help you manage time effectively by giving you some idea of how much effort will be required, alert you to questions you should ask the professor well in advance of the due date, and point you towards the course materials that you will need to revisit or focus on in order to do a commendable job on the assignment. Using the instructions and a rubric as a guide will help you stay on track with your assignment and increase the likelihood of receiving a good grade. So don't dig yourself a hole by rushing through the instructions or ignoring a rubric.